The Brachistochrone Duel. Act 1, The Challenge. The problem. Given 2 points A and B in a vertical plane, what is the curve traced out by a point acted on only by gravity, which starts at A and reaches B in the shortest time? This wasn't just a question about falling objects. It was a challenge to the very heart of classical physics and the emerging mathematics of motion. The straight line? Too slow. The arc of a circle? Still not optimal. What was the fastest descent between 2 points not aligned vertically? A question of speed, time, and gravity. Galileo had ventured close. He believed the arc of a circle might be the answer. Ironically, he had also been the first to name and study the cycloid, the curve traced by a point on the rim of a rolling wheel. Yet even he failed to see that it was the cycloid that answered the very riddle that haunted him. When confronted with his inability to resolve this problem, Galileo said, "It appears the problem awaits a higher science." He was right. That higher science arrived in the minds of the next generation of mathematical warriors. Calculus, the weapon that would finally crack this ancient puzzle. How the challenge was issued. With the flourish of a master entertainer, Bernoulli sent a message to the world. I, Johann Bernoulli, address the most brilliant mathematicians in the world. Nothing is more attractive to intelligent people than an honest, challenging problem, whose possible solution will bestow fame and remain as a lasting monument. Following the example set by Pascal, Fermat, etc., I hope to gain the gratitude of the whole scientific community by placing before the finest mathematicians of our time a problem which will test their methods and the strength of their intellect. If someone communicates to me the solution of the proposed problem, I shall publicly declare him worthy of praise. This was no ordinary academic exercise, it was a gladiatorial summons to the greatest minds alive. A mathematical deathmatch for immortality. The gauntlet had been thrown down. Who would dare to pick it up? Act 2, The Fighters Emerge. Johann Bernoulli, the challenger. Johann Bernoulli wasn't just posing an idle question, he was making a strategic move. As professor at Groningen, he had positioned himself as the champion of Leibnizian calculus against the Newtonian methods that dominated British mathematics. This challenge was his arena, carefully constructed to showcase the power of his preferred approach. Johann already had his own solution, the cycloid, achieved through his mastery of the new continental mathematics. Now he awaited worthy opponents to test their methods against his. Behind his challenge lurked an unspoken question: could anyone match the power of the Leibnizian calculus he championed? Or would the mathematical establishment fail where he had succeeded? Jakob Bernoulli, brother against brother. Older than Johann and no less brilliant, Jakob Bernoulli was taken by surprise when his brother's challenge appeared in Acta Eruditorum. The brothers had a complex relationship, collaborators in advancing mathematics, yet fierce competitors for recognition and priority. Jakob immediately set to work, approaching the problem using a different tactic, inventing what would become the calculus of variations, a new branch of mathematics to deal with optimizing functionals. His approach was pioneering. It wasn't just about solving the problem, but creating the tools for future generations to solve 1,000 more. As the weeks passed, Jakob too converged on the answer, the cycloid. But the method he developed would prove as important as the solution itself. Would his achievement be overshadowed by his younger brother's flair for publicity? Or would Jakob's more profound mathematical contribution ultimately win greater recognition? The continental response. The mathematical Colosseum began to fill with contenders. Leibniz himself, co-creator of calculus and Johann's mentor, responded to the challenge. The Marquis de l'Hôpital, author of the first calculus textbook, also developed his approach. From Paris to Basel to Hanover, the finest mathematical minds of continental Europe wrestled with curves of descent, equations of motion, and principles of minimization. Yet as 1696 drew to a close and the original deadline approached, a notable silence emanated from one quarter, Great Britain, home to the reclusive genius who had transformed physics a decade earlier with his Principia Mathematica. Had the challenge even reached Isaac Newton? Was he too absorbed in his duties at the Royal Mint to bother with mathematical contests? Or perhaps, some dared to whisper, the problem had finally revealed the limitations of Newton's approach. Johann Bernoulli smiled at the thought. His challenge might just prove what he had long suspected, that the future of mathematics lay with the continental methods, not with Newton's fluxions. Act 3, Mysteries and Machinations. The deadline passes. As January 1697 arrived, solutions began to appear from across Europe. Johann Bernoulli, at Leibniz's request, extended the deadline, officially to give more mathematicians time to work on the problem, but perhaps also because a certain British response remained conspicuously absent. The mathematical community buzzed with anticipation. Who would emerge victorious from this unprecedented contest of minds? An anonymous solution. Then, unexpectedly, a solution arrived from England. It contained no name, no explanation of methods, just a precise, elegant proof that the curve of quickest descent was indeed a cycloid. Johann Bernoulli studied the anonymous manuscript with growing astonishment. The approach was unlike any other, direct, powerful, unmistakable in its brilliance. While others had labored for months, this solution suggested a mind that had grasped the essence of the problem immediately. A suspicion formed in Bernoulli's mind. Could it be? Tanquam ex ungue leonum, he whispered to himself. I recognize the lion by his paw. There was only one mathematician in Europe who could solve such a challenge with such economy and force. Only one mind that could cut through the complexity to the elegant heart of the problem. The revelation. As Bernoulli prepared to publish the results of his challenge, he could no longer contain his suspicion. He declared publicly that the anonymous solution from England could only be the work of Isaac Newton, the mathematical lion whose distinctive style was evident in every line of the solution. When the truth emerged, it was even more dramatic than Bernoulli had imagined. Act 4, The Lion Awakens. Isaac Newton, the reluctant warrior. The story that unfolded shocked the mathematical world. Isaac Newton, now in his mid-50s and deeply engaged in his work at the Royal Mint, had not even been aware of the challenge until January 1697, after the original deadline had passed. The problem had finally reached him through the Royal Society, delivered at the end of a long day of administrative work. Newton, who had largely withdrawn from active mathematical research, glanced at the challenge that had stumped Europe's finest minds for 6 months. And then, something remarkable happened. The aging lion, supposedly past his mathematical prime, felt the old fire ignite within him. Like a warrior called back to battle by the sound of trumpets, Newton set aside his administrative papers and turned his full attention to Bernoulli's challenge. He worked through the night. By morning, he had it. Without fanfare, without even claiming credit, Newton sent his solution to the Royal Society for transmission to Bernoulli. In a single evening, he had solved what others had struggled with for months. The answer? The cycloid, the very curve that Galileo had studied but failed to connect to the problem of fastest descent. The duel decided. When all the solutions were finally published in May 1697, the mathematical world could see the full scope of what had transpired. Different mathematicians had approached the problem with different methods. Johann Bernoulli had used Fermat's principle of least time, extending a concept from optics to mechanical motion. Jakob Bernoulli had developed the foundations of the calculus of variations, creating new mathematical tools in his quest for the solution. Leibniz had approached it with his distinctive notation and methods. But Newton's solution stood apart, elegant in its economy, powerful in its insight, achieved in a single night after years away from mathematical research. Where Johann flowed with curves and calculus, Newton had struck like a thunderbolt of physical intuition. And so, the duel reached its climax, many paths, one final destination, and a clear champion. Act V, The Verdict and the Legacy. The verdict was unanimous. Newton's feat, solving in hours what had challenged others for months, confirmed his status as Europe's preeminent mathematical mind. His intellectual dominance, already immense from his earlier work, was now unquestioned. Johann Bernoulli, who had hoped to showcase the superiority of Leibnizian methods, found himself instead paying reluctant homage to Newton's genius. His recognition of the lion by his paw became one of the most famous acknowledgments in scientific history. This mathematical duel cemented Newton's standing at the apex of mathematical greatness, gave birth to the calculus of variations used today in everything from physics to economics, demonstrated the interconnectedness of geometry, physics, and time, exposed the limits of intuition, as even Galileo had missed the connection between his cycloid and his search for quickest descent. But beyond the mathematics, this was a cultural moment. It showed that intellect could duel like gladiators, that ideas, not swords, could shape empires. Epilogue: who really won? Was it Newton, who effortlessly conquered the problem overnight after years away from mathematics? Or Jakob Bernoulli, who forged a new mathematical discipline in the process? Or Johann Bernoulli, who engineered the entire intellectual showdown? Perhaps the real winner was science, for it was in this crucible that modern mathematical physics was tempered. And in that night when Newton rose from the shadows to crush the problem like Hercules dispatching a serpent, the world saw what a true mind could do. The eternal curve. Today, the cycloid lives on. In roller coaster design. In space travel trajectory planning. In the physics of pendulums. In the minds of those who dare to ask the most difficult questions. And in the legend of a mathematical duel that pulled an aging lion from his slumber for one final, magnificent roar that echoed across centuries. As Shakespeare would have put it, the curve of glory. Let fall, they said, a bead from height to base. What path shall carve its fleetest, truest way? A riddle cast by minds who sought to chase the gods of thought through time's enduring play. Galileo saw the arc, but missed the prize. The cycloid's grace, half hidden from his sight. He dreamt of truths beneath celestial skies, but left the task for greater minds to fight. Then Johann flared, "Come forth, ye minds supreme. Let glory crown the one who dares to try." And Newton, cloaked in silence and esteem, did solve by dawn what others scarce drew nigh. Thus through the clash of titans, swift and keen, the curve emerged, the queen of time unseen.